Hello, and welcome to the Truth About Real Estate Investing show. Do that again. A veteran investor, property manager, and realtor buying a Canada Post franchise. Yes, you heard that right. The things we do to avoid long-term rentals and grief as investors. After owning a sixplex, student rentals, rent-to-own, house hacking, what is veteran Tim's next investment? All this and more on the Truth About Real Estate Investing show for Canadians. I'm your host, Erwin Cito. Ni hao from Hong Kong, China. After a wonderful 10 days in Tokyo and Osaka and eating everything from grilled chicken hearts to fresh tuna belly to fry your own Wagyu beef, I think we just had, oh, at least I did, had what I think was the 10 best days of eating my life. The kids had a memorable trip too. Funny enough, that the most expensive attraction that we attended, Universal Studios Japan. So we're hanging out at Hogwarts with Harry and Hermione, Ron, and also Super Mario World. Uh, that was not their favorite part of the trip. Instead, it was one of the cheapest things that we did, which was hand feeding wild deer. The deer would bow to us, and they happened to be the messengers of gods. to feed the wild deer, I think it cost us about $18 in total of food, and the kids couldn't get enough of it. Uh, on the food scene, the kids are normally carb monsters. They love to eat bread, noodles, and rice until they try Japanese Wagyu beef. Our kids are not picky eaters, so they'll try anything, which is great. However, the downside is when they tasted Wagyu beef, we had to share it with them. For those foodies scoring at home, omakase, an omakase Wagyu beef dinner for one, which included five typically less expensive cuts of beef, like short rib, shank. Uh, what else? Again, the lower cuts, usually the lower cuts of beef, but they had incredible marbling. That cost about $26 Canadian, and we shared it. If you haven't been to Japan, FYI, the yen is on sale, so everything when traveling to Japan is on sale. Do yourself a favor, book yourself a trip. It's bucket list level. If you need tips or anything like that, just reach out. If enough of you reach out, I'll put together a document on what I recommend for a trip. Um, but before I get started on this show about real estate, I'm going to talk a little bit about real estate. Again, I'm here in Hong Kong, and this is the least affordable city in the world, and real estate's still nuts, even after a significant fall in prices. I'm grateful to be staying in my in-laws' place, but it's so different from back home. My home, I live in a detached home. Here in Hong Kong, we're staying in the equivalent of Barrie, Ontario, which is far north of Ontario of the city of Toronto. We are on the last stop that public transit goes to, and we're staying in a 2-bed, 1-bath. I think it's around 600 square feet condo, and it's worth about 1.2 million Canadian, and that's after about a 20% correction after the protests and also COVID. Hong Kong is different in that it did not experience a meteoric rise in real estate prices like we did have in North America, because again they had civil unrest, government locking down on rights here, and yeah. I had an extended family member share with me how their rent dropped on a condo again here in Hong Kong. The rent dropped 11% between tenants, and there was a 5-month vacancy period between tenants, and there was no renovation. For those back home, I think like in Vancouver or Toronto areas, vacancy rates are under 1%. So no one's experiencing 5-month vacancy unless they're doing something wrong. And guess what an 823 square foot condo rent is for? 823 square feet. Now keep in mind the average 2-bedroom in downtown Vancouver or Toronto is about 35,000 to 37,000. Again, that's Canadian dollars for the average 2-bedroom in Vancouver or Toronto. Do you have a number in mind? The new rent for this 823 square foot condo is just over 6,200 Canadian dollars per month on a condo that would be worth around 1.5 million. Again, real estate over here is nuts. Are Cherry and I looking to invest in real estate here in Hong Kong or Japan? No, we have no plans to invest here. It's just so unaffordable. The minimum capital to invest here is just so high. The financing rules here require down payments of 50%. And for that amount, I could own a house. I could pay cash for a house in the States that comes with land, and it'd be in a good area, in a top 10 town, and they would cash flow better than here and in Canada. They'd cash flow better than here in Canada. Add to that, the Chinese government restricts the amount of capital allowed to leave the country. So Chinese citizens are forced to invest locally, which they have excessively, which has caused an artificial bubble for Chinese real estate. So for me, there's just too much risk. I'm generally quite risk adverse. So as much as we are enjoying our stay here, it's December and I'm dressed in shorts and a t-shirt. I'm overeating like pigs, as I like to do. Well, it's mostly me, overindulging in comfort food like dim sum. We're on a current streak of 3 days in a row of having Chinese brunch that we call dim sum. I've been popping pineapple buns with big slices of butter. Food is wonderful over here and relatively inexpensive because there's no sales tax and tips are much smaller. We're enjoying our stay, but I'm reminded that there was nowhere, just like there's no perfect place to live, there is no perfect investment either. I do love where I live. We're not moving away. I know I'm talking a lot about other places in U.S. investing, but we're not leaving our home west of Toronto. The schools are great. My friends, family, clients are all great. We love our house with a pool and a view. But there is so much that I don't like about what's happening in our country. The amount of debt, the exploitation of international students, our understaffed healthcare system. If you read the news as much as I do, then you'll know that the Sunshine List was published, which contains public servants who make incomes in the six figures, and it was full of nurses making over 200,000, thanks to working obscene number of overtime hours, and that's because of our nursing shortages. So we're already in crisis mode over there, and then add to that we are in a housing crisis. I just read, if you haven't read it, I recommend that you do, December's Maclean's magazine, where the cover story it details how tenant unions have successfully organized rent strikes. So there's hundreds and hundreds of people in Toronto with the support of the Toronto mayor, and they're not paying rent. And it's not just the low-end rental buildings either. Even newer buildings where a one-bedroom would rent for over $2,400, they have over 550 tenants striking as well, as their building was built after 2018, so they don't have rent control. And they're not happy about having to pay market rents either. The rest of the striking tenants do have rent control, and they're protesting landlord-tenant board approved above guideline rent increases for capital costs like roof replacements, balconies, but the tenants don't want to pay for those renovations. And they're complaining that contractors are loud, slow, and disruptive to their enjoyment of the property. Welcome to living through a renovation. There is no way that this ends well. With no rent coming in, they're going to scare the private sector from investing in building purpose-built rentals, and there's no money for maintenance. And if the landlords are smart, which they likely are, they're going to report their rent, the tenant's rent, like I recommend to all my clients that they use a landlord credit bureau. So a landlord can report a tenant's rent to the Equifax, and if the tenant's not paying rent, then they take a pretty big hit to their credit because rent is typically a tenant's largest expense. Someone has to pay to maintain the building, and all costs have risen. Inflation is brutal out there. Again, I don't see how this ends well, and I certainly don't see how this motivates the private sector to build more rentals or for more local investors, mom and pop investors to get into the market. In the US, however, in many of the hot markets during COVID, where they don't have rent control, they overbuilt purpose-built rentals and rents are coming down. I shared a screen capture of a tweet from Jay Parsons. If you don't follow Jay Parsons on Twitter, I suggest you do. He posts a lot of great information on multifamily in the States. From the 2024 Realtor.com forecast report, it states that new home builders have also overbuilt. So there's pressure on prices to come down in the States. See what happens when people can actually build stuff and then prices come down, which is, I thought, what we want here in Canada. Highlighted in the report also is that Austin, Texas is expected to lead the country in price declines at negative 14%. And I'm excited to buy and invest in one of the best cities in what I consider in the world for investment based on economic fundamentals at discounted prices. I've already booked my flight to Austin for January. Austin is a 4-hour flight away for Torontonians, just like Calgary is, but I prefer warm weather, golf, and comedy. The best comedy club in the U.S. is actually owned by Joe Rogan, and it's located in Austin. More important to real estate is high-paying jobs. Elon Musk has already brought 10,000 jobs to Austin via Tesla and SpaceX, so that's old news. New news is Samsung is building a $42 billion microchip manufacturing plant near Austin that will directly employ 4,500 people. If you are a real estate investor, follow the jobs. And in my research, I can't find many of these type of job stories in Canada outside of like Austin and St. Thomas in Ontario. But again, I can get a house in Austin cheaper than I can in Windsor. And the economic fundamentals do not align. And there's no rent control. So many good paying jobs and warm weather climate with no state tax will attract a lot of people, and that'll drive up house prices and rents. And there's no landlord to afford. In my opinion, that will be a formula for successful real estate investing. And again, they're developer friendly in Texas. So first off, I need to sell off some existing properties to raise some cash, and then then they'll hit the MLS the first week of January, which is the ideal time to sell student rentals. When students get frustrated with the limited supply of rentals, limited supply and the limited supply of quality housing, and also how rents in my market are $800 a room, the math will make a lot of sense to buy instead of rent for the more savvy, deep-pocketed parents. So that's why I'm timing to be selling in January instead of waiting for the spring. My pre-listing inspections are done, repairs and renovations have started, cleaners are lined up, and I can't wait to invest down south where investors are wanted, and also for improved cash flow. When I was touring Atlanta, a typical investment property there, a house with 3 bedrooms and 2 full bathrooms, was around $300,000 and rents for $2,000 plus utilities per month. So for those more savvy with numbers, the gross rent yield is just about 8%. And that beats most investments here in Canada without having to shell out hundreds of thousands of dollars. No major renovations like a basement, nor do I have to develop a property. This is how we're going to make real estate investing great again. If you're interested in learning more about how to invest in the US, the tax implications, corporation setup, financing, where to invest, we will answer all those questions on Saturday, January 13th at our IWIN offices in Oakville, which will be, so we'll also simultaneously broadcast this via Zoom. So if you can't make it in person, so for example, if you live in BC or Alberta or Quebec, you can just tune in via Zoom. We'll have about 40 seats in person, and they will sell it the fastest. Details are in our email newsletter and in the show notes. We'll have a link to register there. On to this week's show. We have my old friend Tim Hong. We've been associates at Rockstar Real Estate and coaching investors since 2011 together. Tim has done several joint ventures and rent-to-owns. He's owned an apartment building, he's done student rentals. Tim has his own property management company for condos to duplexes from Toronto to Hamilton to Kitchener-Waterloo. In his newest venture, a cash flow play, Tim acquired a private off-market Canada Post franchise, and he is approaching 1 year of ownership, and he has drastically raised revenues. He's here to share how he's done it, why he's done it, what his next investment is, and how he did it, considering the fact that he's managed to stay married while he's having 3 young kids and 2 dogs. To follow Tim, check him out on Instagram, _Tim Hong _. or you can email him at tim@infinitywealth.ca. Please enjoy the show. Hi, Tim. What's keeping you busy these days?
Hey, quite a bit of stuff. Running multiple businesses, doing real estate, property management. Last year we bought a Canada Post store just down the street from here. So 3 kids as well, 2 dogs. Yeah.
You have 2 dogs? That's right.
Dogs.
I remember
Yeah,
you have 2 dogs.
Yeah.
3 kids weren't enough. You needed a second dog?
Apparently, chaos. Once it calmed down after the kids, it's just you add a layer of chaos and it just makes things better, I guess.
Do you just like a lot going on?
Yeah. Then it seems like when there's less stuff to do, when, say, for example, the kids go sleep at the in-laws or my parents, then it's just like, it's just relaxing.
Because that last dog wasn't even like a regular dog. It was you got a puppy.
It's got a puppy. That was like a birthday impulse purchase by accident.
No. By accident.
We were dropping off our original dog at the breeder, and they don't start for boarding, and they had puppies, and they're like, "Oh, it's so cute." And I was like,
Who said it was so cute? Who wanted the dog? The kids or you guys?
Us, me and Kirsten.
Oh, okay.
We were looking at it, so I was like,
all right, I don't even know where to start because you said a mouthful. Let's start with the Canada Post.
okay.
What do you mean you bought a Canada Post?
So last year, my wife didn't really want a change of scenery from her current place, and I was always looking for. I always look for some opportunities and stuff like that. I've always wanted to own kind of like my own business. Originally, it was always a restaurant, but restaurants very, very difficult margin-wise and to open and to run in the hours. It didn't make sense at this time in our life stage. So we were looking around and found this Canada Post. So it's just up off of Dorval and North Service Road. So it's an authorized Canada Post outlet. It also sells greeting cards, like your Hallmark greeting cards. So birthday cards, wedding cards, and stuff like that.
Pokemon cards.
We've added Pokemon cards and lottery as well.
Yeah.
So we looked into it, kind of saw the numbers, actually fairly cheap because the previous owner has been there. So the store's been there for 20 plus years in that plaza. The current owner was probably there for 10, 15 years. They were getting tired. A lot of inventory missing from the store. Half the shelves were empty.
Right.
Found out that they were driving from North York to Oakville every day. So opening at 9:30, leaving at 7 o'clock at night. That drive's it's very, very tiring, and they're a little bit older couple. So they just wanted to sell. And I was looking at it as almost an investment property like real estate, where we go in, increase the sales, and then potentially either hire out hours, because it's owner operated right now, or flip it as a business. So throughout the past year, we've been adding new stuff to sell, new inventory. We've been working with other local artists selling on consignment. So artists that have been selling off of Etsy or Amazon, they've come in and put their artwork or handmade jewelry, handmade cards out, and then we just sell it on consignment for them, give them a little bit of a store shelf to showcase their product. And it's kind of a win-win for everybody because I don't have to buy wholesale for inventory, and they have a place to show. They don't have to rent space or anything like that. We've added passport photos over the past year, added more inventory. And based on kind of the Canada Post sales from January to September, it looks like we've increased sales about 15% so far. Increased Google rankings. We're the highest ranked Canada Post in Oakville right now. So if you search Canada Post Oakville, we're one of the highest ranked ones there. So when we took over, it was like 1.2 stars. We're just over 4 stars right now.
It got down that bad, eh?
Yeah, it was pretty bad. So like if you're looking at it, you're looking at a distressed house essentially. So it's a distressed business. Seller wasn't motivated anymore to stay there. They were lacking inventory. They were lacking customer service. And those things are an easy fix, essentially. It's like cosmetic paint renovation.
Right.
So it's an easy fix.
Right.
And so the goal is by the end of this year, I'll have better numbers, because the biggest thing was wrapping my head around when you order inventory, you order it, you get it, but then you don't pay for it usually 30, 60 days down the road. So the cash flow is up and down. So that was one of the more difficult parts to kind of figure out and kind of understand what's going on that one.
And you're happy with the purchase?
So far, yeah, not too bad so far. In terms of we've already refinanced it, so we bird the store essentially, so we don't have any money in it. Took all our original funds out, and then just slowly paying back the refinance loan now, and then again we'll see by the end of this year either hire out more hours or maybe flip it middle of next year.
How's the current financing work? Is it like BDC or something like that?
We went through BDC. Actually, from BDC, it was actually a very, very simple, all online. Just submit, because it was existing business, just submitted some existing numbers. They were okay with everything.
You didn't meet with anyone from
No,
BDC?
nothing. Interest is high. Interest is high.
How much is the interest?
12%.
Right.
So, but it's unsecured, so it's kind of like a line of credit essentially.
12% is like second mortgage money.
Yeah, it's.
But that's actually secured on something. Yours is unsecured.
It's unsecured. Yeah, and we've met with a couple banks as well, but they want to evaluate the loan based on inventory and what you would potentially sell it at. So it was harder to get through a traditional bank loan versus the BDC was actually very easy to work with. So
it was all online.
Yeah,
that's crazy.
Literally never have met with anyone.
Wait, like the numbers. You just input them. You didn't have to upload documents or corporate statements.
They just asked for like monthly sales. That's it.
And you just keyed it in. No one reviewed.
No, because they asked for accounting stuff, and I was like, I don't have it because we were only 6 months in. We never did accounting yet for it.
Yeah.
So they looked at the business, looked at the sale, I'm like, okay, sure. I'm like,
here's 12%. Here's money for 12%.
As an investor, I'll take it any day. Easy money. Obviously, the profit of the store maybe goes down because you have to pay back that loan, but it's all again deductible interest and stuff like that.
What's the term of the loan? Like, is it like a 10-year?
5 year.
So you'll be paid off in 5 years.
Yep.
Then you have a free and clear asset.
Yeah.
That you have no money in.
Correct. Yeah.
That's not bad.
That generates income on a monthly, daily basis, essentially.
That's not so bad.
And then, again, we've increased the inventory probably about 5 times as much as the previous owner. So it was still a little bit to go as it takes some time. We didn't want to throw a whole bunch of money into the store. Like, we didn't want to do a full paint or like renovate the shelves and the floor plans or anything like that. We just kept the existing business and just improved customer service, improved here and there, and slowly we're hearing customers come back saying, thank goodness that you took over the store from the previous owner. So always good signs, though.
Yeah, because I've hung out with you, and then like people, you have like a relationship with your customers.
Yeah. One thing I was hearing, I don't remember who said it, but it was just treating your customers like family. Yeah. Is like they'll always come back. Some customers, not the greatest, don't listen to some of the rules and some of the questions to deal with, but just got to be patient with most of them. Some of those ones, yeah.
What kind of target returns were you looking for when you were like qualifying the business?
No expectations, actually. In terms of probably looking at it, it was probably not the right way to go at it to begin with. I kind of just looked at it. I was like, the numbers look like it's good. It looks like it kind of at least breaks even. It might make a little bit of money based on what they reported. Because what they reported, one is that they didn't even kind of let me know how things are reported. So Canada Post was reported differently versus their greeting card sales, for example. And how they reported their greeting card sales was through the old, your cash register little receipt slip, and they printed it out. It was like a 1.5 feet long, and I was like, what is this? Cash sales and stuff like that. So even the Canada Post side is that how it works is you make the sale, but Canada Post takes a portion of it. So you make a percentage essentially, kind of, and then there's no franchise fees or anything like that. But you do, once you make the sale, for example, you sell $100 worth of stamps, Canada Post takes X amount the following day. So you collect $100 from the customer, Canada Post takes their percentage the following day from your bank account. So I didn't realize how that worked at the very beginning when looking at the original numbers. So essentially no expectations going into it. Probably not the right way to do it, but based on what I saw, it looked like the numbers at least broke even. I'm like, if it breaks even, okay, that's good enough, or we can do something with it.
Right.
It's definitely risky to do it, but I wouldn't say it wasn't calculated. Did your typical sat outside the store for an hour, see how many people, counted how many people go in, went into it multiple times as a customer before actually making an offer and stuff like that.
Did she know you're...
No, at that time, no, she didn't. When we were walking in, so I went in to go buy lottery tickets, did the mailing just to see what...
You're like a secret shopper for yourself.
Yeah, for myself, yeah. And then I just, after doing that, just sitting outside the store for an hour, just counting the customers going in and out of it.
Okay.
So just to see.
And then where'd the money come from to buy the business?
Just cash.
From Bitcoin's proceeds, from real estate
Bitcoins.
proceeds?
Real estate proceeds, like savings and checkings, yeah.
Yeah.
So it wasn't, in terms of the business itself, it was cheap, I would say. Because it included some inventory, but it was cheap.
Because a couple of reasons I want a listener to extract from your story is there's a whole lot of people trying to avoid long-term tenants in Ontario. And you have a lot of experience with long-term hold tenancy properties in Ontario, and here you are buying a business. And there's a lot of people interested in buying businesses these days because that's there's opportunity there with rates high. A lot of people don't have legacy plans where like for example, the seller of this business likely had kids.
Yep.
Who probably didn't want the business.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, they didn't want the business at all. Yeah.
And
they were in I think they were both in university.
Oh, it's not even that old, right?
Not even that, like probably mid-20s, maybe out of university. Just in either finishing or just out. I don't remember off the top of my head, yeah.
But they wanted nothing to do with the business.
They wanted, like literally the day, so we took over technically October 31st last year. The day of closing, the lady just gave me the keys and left everything in the store. She just took her personal belongings. Haven't seen her since. Her husband came by a couple times just to pick up everything. They left everything.
Yeah.
They didn't...
They wanted it gone.
They just wanted it gone.
Right.
So first couple months was pretty crazy. Don't know what to do. I didn't know if half the mail would actually get to where it was going. Did 3 intense days of training, and that's it. And then just thrown into the fire.
Yeah, because I've been monitoring listings not nearly as deeply as you did, just out of curiosity. But that seems to be the trend. Is there's a lot of people up there in age who don't have some family to take it over. They don't have someone to sell the property to, or the business to. They don't have staff to sell it to. And I see there's lots of listings. And the funny thing is almost all of them are offering seller financing. Yeah. I think like 80% of them are immediately offering seller financing.
As an investor into a business, that's actually great. That's great to do. And then those are the businesses that you want to jump into, kind of those ones that have been around for a while, the seller's retiring or they don't want it, and there's ways to make it increase in terms of sales, whether that be customer service, automation, technology, anything that would increase sales, like systems, anything.
Existing customer base. Right. It's easier to because I hope the listener takes. I find so many people just like they want to do everything themselves. Like there's nothing wrong with walking into a situation that's turnkey.
Yeah. We're doing it, it's turnkey, but in this case, we are doing everything as ourselves. So we're throwing a lot of hours in there right now, but it is what it is. It's kind of planned. And then once we kind of get the numbers and we can start hiring out, then I can, if not putting that many hours into it, then I treat it as just a cash flowing investment. That's it.
So then what's the next phase? I think you mentioned it. The next phase is to hire.
Yeah, by the end of the year, we'll figure out, I'll have better numbers because it'll be a full true calendar year for us.
The business will be stabilized, you'll know the numbers.
And then we have all the inventory already stocked up, so we're not kind of paying for the inventory anymore. It's just kind of the replenishment. Then I'll have a better idea of who we can hire and how many hours that I can kind of take off and start doing other stuff again.
Right. Because you're not busy enough.
Nope, not busy enough, no.
Because my understanding is you got back into property management.
Yeah. So me and my business partner decided this earlier this year to kind of jump back into it. we kind of figured out what the systems that we needed properly,
Yeah.
to make sure that our time is spent well. Like previously when we were doing it, we had up to about, I think, 50 doors, and we sold off a block of those doors back in 2018, I think it was 2019. So it's been 3-4 years, just because we were busy with our other stuff, and we didn't want to grow that business anymore. But now, and that time, we were taking money transfers from tenants. So everybody was sending me EMTs, and then I was manually entering them in. So we use property software called Buildium. Found it really good, actually. But payout to owners, we couldn't EMT all the owners because there's limits on the EMTs. So we used a third party called Pluto. So everything was manual at that time, and it just made it very time consuming the first couple days of the month, just collecting all the payments, making sure all the owners were paid correctly, and no mistakes and stuff like that. But now we've set it up that all the tenants pay through direct deposit through the software, and then all the owners are paid directly through the software as well. So they get direct deposit too.
Oh, that's fantastic.
So
is that through Buildium?
Everything's through Buildium right now. So we set up proper business accounts. A little bit annoying to set everything up, but it's now saved hours the first couple months. And then in terms of like maintenance, my business partner will take care of all the maintenance stuff. So a maintenance request comes in, we'll deal with the tenant, outsource it to either our third party, either handymans that we have on file or contractors or whoever we need, get it all done, coordinate with the tenant. A lot of the times we actually tell the tenant, here's our contact for handyman. Reach out to them, coordinate a time to fix it, get it done, and they'll invoice us. So we are not the middleman in that one. If they say it's an important thing, they'll contact that. They'll answer and they'll reach out to the contractor. If it's not as important, then they won't. And we kind of gauge the seriousness of the issue or the maintenance request. So for example, if something's like, I don't know, the dryer doesn't seem to be like it's drying properly. Okay, here's our appliance guy. Reach out to them, book them in, and they'll come over and take a look, and then once they do the fix, they'll invoice us. But they don't reach out to the dryer guy. That means the maintenance request was never actually urgent. It might be drying, but it might not be drying to their standards or whatnot. But it wasn't urgent enough to actually get something done. Obviously, if it's a flood or something, we'll get it done right away. But if it's something like that, something smaller, we'll get them to kind of coordinate and we gauge, okay, if it's actually an urgent request or if it's more of a they want something. Yeah.
Interesting. And then how big do you plan on growing this business?
Right now, I think we're about just under back to about 30 doors right now. So looking to double it by next year, and then we'll kind of go from there. We don't want it to go too crazy. It's still, I would still consider it almost not really a side project, but an extra stream of income for both of us. That we've had the systems now in place that we don't need to put as many hours into it. We have a leasing party as well that will help us do the leasing. We do the final vet in terms of the tenant as well. So in terms of me before, where I was going out to do the showings and stuff like that, I don't have to spend as much hours as that. I just meet the final tenant, do the final yes or no on that one. So I'll still meet them. I'll still get the final say in that. But then again, spending less hours. And what I've learned even from the past year from the store is finding ways to either automate, systemize, use technology to make things easier. So take that concept and apply it to the property management business at the same time. And then again, listen to other property managers that have been doing it for a long time and take bits and pieces from what they're doing and what other tenants don't like from what I'm hearing, and then apply it to it. Because some of the tenants that I put in probably about 4 years ago when we sold our book of business, those tenants were still there when I took over. When I messaged them back, hey, it's Tim. I don't know if you remember me, but I was managing the property before. Multiple of them said, thank God you're back. The other property management was a gong show. So
are they still around, that previous PM?
They're still around, yeah, but I don't know. I don't know how they're doing.
Yeah, it's not the easiest business.
Not the easiest business if you're. I know they were trying to grow very quickly, but they didn't have the systems in place. So we are growing slowly with the systems in place right now. So taking on clients here and there in the Kitchener, Hamilton area, and then condos within the GTA.
And then what other piece of technology are you implementing to make this easier? Are you using like single key, for example, like to screen, or are you using front lobby or anything like that?
Yeah, so with it'll be kind of single key to use for tenant screening and reports. I forget the name. There's also a bank one that we actually look at for bank transactions. So we can tell if they say they have no pet, but we see them on a monthly basis go to the pet store,
Yeah.
then we kind of know that they have a pet.
Yeah.
So I forget what the name of that one is, but yeah, technology like that to make the screening easier, reports easier, income check, employment check, verification first and last, everything like that. References, realistically, I'll talk to previous, see if I can talk to the like this, not the existing landlord, but the previous one before that. Any existing landlord and any reference isn't typically going to give you a bad reference. If they're willing, if that tenant is willing, and you can even think of it as if you're an employee, right? You're not, if somebody asks for a reference, you're not going to put a reference down that you know that they're going to say bad stuff to it. So calling references is, I'd rather do third-party checks, social media checks, call the business to see if they're actually employed there, HR checks and stuff like that.
Fantastic. Yeah, and if they call me and my rents are like $1,000 below market, you better believe I'm motivated.
Yeah, you're motivated to get them out.
Find a
Whether
new
they're
place.
good or not, you're like, oh, is there any issues? No, there's no issues whatsoever. They paid rent on time. They're a little bit dirty, but they paid rent on time. But they're yeah. So there's so for that one, yeah, we've dealt with over the years bad tenants. Majority are good though.
Yeah.
Like the majority are very good. Sometimes you do deal with the bad ones that, for whatever reason, maybe a couple months in, something happens, separation from boyfriend, girlfriend, or family member or whatnot, and then just it goes down the rails, and then that's where you get the landlord tenant board, and that becomes the issue now. Here is the delays that we are dealing with, which is difficult for an investor, manageable if you know what you're getting yourself into, but it is difficult because the delays are 7-8 months or longer.
How often so say the tenants have a marital breakup or boyfriend girlfriend, they break up, and do they actually get to landlord tenant board? Like, what gets them to landlord tenant board? Is they're not paying rent because they can't afford it? What is it?
Yeah, so either a non-payment of rent and then they don't leave, or if, for example, it was you were selling the property and a buyer was coming in and you were actually moving in, or even if you were actually legitimately moving in.
Yeah.
To the property and they dispute it, saying that they don't believe you. Then
How often are they disputing the move-in?
it depends. I think it happens more obviously in multifamilies,
Right.
just because it seems less likely that an investor or somebody that would move into a triplex, for example. There is definitely possibility, but it's less likely. So
But the penalties are so stiff.
yeah, so once they dispute it, doesn't matter if they're going to lose.
Right.
It's about 7-8 months. It's going to the LTB hearing. It's minimum 7-8 months.
But are they disputing to stall or be a pain, or they can't find a place, or they
Either
actually
or.
truly don't believe the investor is moving in?
Could be a number of reasons. So we had a investor sell their house last year, October 2022, and the tenant was in there. A good tenant, single mom. They actually had a bunch of kids. It was an immigrant family that's been in there for 4 or 5 years. So we worked with a company to put them in. Always paid rent. A little bit of more wear and tear than normal, just because of the kids. Sold it October 2022. Gave them the proper notice. They were supposed to leave end of December 2022. They didn't leave. Prior to that, we filed for the landlord tenant board hearing, just because we knew that they might give us a potential issue. We didn't get the hearing till June of 2023, so this year. So from the day that they were supposed to leave, 6 months, got the hearing, they didn't show up, didn't get the court order for another 6 weeks, so another month and a half, mid-July, got the court order. Day after they were supposed to be leaving, then they didn't leave, went to the sheriff to go file for sheriff, waited another 4 weeks for the sheriff to get them out. And I told luckily somebody was actually helping them out at that time, and they paid rent through the whole time, so that's a good thing. They just didn't want to move. There was a communication barrier We tried to get them a translator, but kind of fell through. Didn't really work. It's just that they didn't want to move. That's it. And then they didn't realize what was happening until the very end. And I told them, I was like, I don't want to get in a situation where the sheriff comes and all the kids are in the house, and all the kids are in the house.
You're on the street.
And legitimately, you are going to be kicked out because we have to change the locks. Yeah. So I kept on explaining to them. They actually got some help, and luckily they left the day before. Sheriff came, no issues. Locks changed, and then the buyer closed. The buyer came along with us for the ride for almost a year, essentially.
Whose buyer was this?
Just a buyer that was planning to move into the property.
Right, but this wasn't our client.
Not the buyer. The client, the seller was our client. So closed the property September this year. Mm-hmm. So pretty much 11 months from the original accepted offer, they were out. Again, luckily the tenants paid rent through the whole time. No issues there. Luckily, yeah. So, and I've heard stories where tenants aren't paying and stuff like that, and not the greatest way to deal with it. It's more about, again, from what I've learned, is just communicating with the tenants and just understanding where they're coming from, trying to get them out. A lot of people want to do what they call cash for keys. I don't actually like that term, so I'm starting as of today, and as people have heard me on our meetings and stuff, call it a move-out agreement. Oh. Compensation for cooperation. That's what we should call it as in landlords.
Yeah.
Don't call it cash for keys.
I'm paying for your moving expenses.
Yeah. Call it, you're compensating them for cooperating with you.
Yeah.
That's it. And it's a move-out agreement as well.
And yeah.
We should, that term, the cash for keys, it's a bad stigma for us as landlords, and then for tenants, they'll use it against us. So I never use that term with my tenants.
I never use that with my tenant. Yeah. I'm saying I'm paying your moving expenses and it's compensation for your trouble.
Some people will, on the agreement when they sign like an N11, on the separate agreement where it says cash for keys.
No, they don't.
Yeah. Don't do that. Just call it a move-out agreement. Call it compensation for cooperation, something. Just
moving expenses.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
This is disruptive.
Yeah.
It's a nice thing to do. Yeah. I'll pay your moving expenses and maybe your first and last month's rent or something like that.
So majority of tenants are good. Most we've had to pay a couple months out in terms of rent out. Never had to deal with a tenant that wanted a lot of money. I've had situations where they say they want a lot of money, but it never happens that they actually get it.
What's a lot? Like 10 or 20,000?
The highest one I just saw was 18,000, and they ended up getting their last month's deposit returned to them.
That's it?
Yeah. You have to know how to negotiate too.
So speaking of negotiation, Bill, this doesn't just happen overnight. You've been around real estate a long time. Can you kind of give us an abbreviated version of your real estate investor and coach journey?
Been, I guess, house hacking before I was house hacking back in 2005 when I was downtown Toronto, working corporate, living in a 2-bedroom condo, 2+ den. I was living in the master and renting out the sunroom and the other bedroom.
Doesn't the sunroom get cold?
There was 2, I guess, French doors. Yeah, I think that's what we call it. So 2 sets of French doors on it and windows, and then privacy screen on the French doors.
Yeah.
So.
Okay.
It was nice. It had sunlight in it. And then...
Wait, do you remember what you were getting? Do you remember what you were getting in rent?
$600 a room, I think it was.
That's not bad.
It's not bad, yeah.
Yeah, these days it's ridiculous how much.
Probably that sunroom now easily like $1,200. No problem. The sunroom's $1,200 right now.
The sunroom has doubled in rent.
Yeah.
It's such a sad state of affairs, rent rates.
And then after that, got my first straight rent. Actually, I believe it was a rent to own property in 2008, 2009. I think it was.
Oh, good timing.
Yeah, not bad. And then
where was it? What's
Kitchener.
Kitchener. Okay, yeah, of course. Yeah, makes sense.
And then over the next, I think, 3 to 4 years, ended up getting a couple more straight rentals. Jumped into a 6-unit building in Hamilton, and then officially licensed back in 2011.
Oh, okay. I thought you were 10. Okay, but yeah.
2011, I think, and then did full-time, I guess, investor coaching in 2013, starting. So, seen it all essentially.
Yeah, because Yeah, like you were ambitious and you had a 6-unit building on Main Street, and it was a nice location because you were overlooking Gage
Right
Park.
across from Gage Park.
Like
So location, like, so the idea was right, the timing, not right for us, for example.
Yeah.
So me and my JV partner jumped into it. I think we bought it for $350, I think, at that time.
350,000 for a 6-unit.
6-unit building.
Yeah.
Obviously, the idea with any multifamily is go in, renovate while there's vacancies, increase the rent. But at that time, it was 2010. So what's that? 13 years from? Holy crap, that's quite a while.
Yeah.
So 13 years, Hamilton, Main Street East, across from Gage Park. You can kind of figure out what the tenant profile was at that time. So went through it.
It's an old building too.
Old building,
Yeah.
purpose-built 6-unit building, 2 bedrooms, 1 bathroom in each of the units.
Yeah.
So great building in general, but a lot of maintenance stuff.
A lot of
to
deferred
happen.
maintenance.
Yeah.
Because wait, did the previous owners do any serious capital expenditure?
A little bit, but not a lot.
Like, because then you need to do like the roof and the
roof
boiler
we originally
and
needed to do,
windows.
the boiler. Well, we didn't touch any of that stuff because it was too expensive for us at that time. We didn't have.
Let the next guy pay it.
When we originally bought it, we were looking to cash flow about I think $1,000-1,200 a month. Yeah, it was negative about that much. So after all, it was good a learning experience for that one. So after all, everything, we held it for 4 years. And at that time, it was one of my JV partners was going back to school to get this MBA. So he's like, I'm not working anymore, so I don't have any more salary to help compensate any of this.
I can't handle the negative cash flow.
I can't handle the negative cash flow. So we ended up selling it. So it went up in value. I think we sold it for $450-500. I don't remember exact number. But after all the money that we put in for renovations, tenant issues, dealing with everything, we actually ended up with net negative about $30,000.
Net negative 30,000.
Yeah, so we lost $30,000. So
your negative cash flow. Oh, damn.
yeah, so we made money on the sale, but after everything, accounting for all the expenses, over the past 4 years, we ended up losing about $30,000.
Right. And all along with all those headaches that went with it.
Yeah. Because you're dealing six tenants, 6 problems. Multifamily for me, not one. I don't manage any of them right now, and I don't want to manage. That's why we're keeping to single families, condos, and duplexes at most. Mm-hmm. And for me to own, I don't want to deal with. I have enough problems. 3 kids and 2 dogs. Enough issues at home.
I remember that property because we went through it with clients, and I think one person had locked himself in.
Yep.
You could not get in. Like he nailed it shut.
The other one was there was like 2 very loud dogs that I'm not too sure they're very angry dogs. It sounded
very
like
angry dogs. They are all smoking. And the other thing, I think the majority of the tenants were home during the day as well, which is usually a red flag.
Yeah. So a lot of them might have been
don't work.
Like
They don't have
Ontario Works
jobs.
or ODSP and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Some non-payments of rents, not a lot, surprisingly, more of a maintenance stuff, and then complaints.
Yeah.
So like one guy was the guy on the top floor. I remember specifically, he ran water for like days straight, and our water
the guy
bill,
that locked himself in.
our water bill came up to like, I don't know, that month probably like $900 plus
Oh my god.
for that, and we got like a letter saying why is the water so high and stuff like that. But he's not the smartest tenant. He should have ran hot water, right? So he just ran the cold water. But just dealing with that stuff, I'm like, I don't want to. I've dealt with it. Don't want to keep right now in my stage of investing is just simple.
Yeah.
It's just simple. Single family or condos. Even though condos might not cash flow, just long-term simple. I have one downtown that's negative cash flow, but I look at it as just 10 years from now, like it's owning something downtown New York, downtown Toronto. Like could use it for school potentially for the kids. I do have a JV partners on that one, so they could use it for their kids. We're okay in terms of we're something simple. I like simple right now. After dealing with everything, it's just simple.
So your journey and also heading towards simple is quite common among people our age and who've been around for a while, versus like there's so many like new course grads who are like I'm gonna go buy an apartment building, I'm gonna do cash for keys for all 12 tenants and go through each unit $25,000-30,000 renovations and you're gonna do a strategic repositioning, I think they call it. And then in 5-10 years, they'll have some cash flow.
I get. Well, we find like obviously the more complex the deal, the more money you're more likely to make from it.
Yeah.
But I'm okay right now with kind of just simple, small, small kind of singles and doubles here and there in terms of that. I don't need a home run investment right now.
So how do you
need
deal
a
with
lot of capital for those bigger projects? You need some deep pockets.
Right. Well, you need some deep pockets for even single family properties, duplexes, in order to make it cash flow.
Yes.
Am I right?
Yeah.
So if you were buying a property today, what would it be, and how much would you be putting down?
Obviously, you want to. If you're putting your standard 20% down, you're probably
you're
not
not
cash flowing either way, because you're buying, let's say you're buying a duplex for $800,000, whether it be Hamilton or Kitchener.
Yeah.
That mortgage payment by itself, at the interest rates that we're at now, it's probably $4,000 by itself.
Right.
And you're only probably going to be only getting about $4,000 in rent.
Right.
Let's say
assuming you can get market rent.
Yeah, 2,000 or something, like 4,000 to 4,500. But you also add in your property taxes, your insurance, any utilities, and if you borrowed that your down payment from your HELOC, then you got payments on that.
Yeah.
So getting to a cash flow stage now, it's much harder than when we were buying in 2008, 2009.
Those are the days.
Those are the good days.
It's under $200,000 for a house.
Under $200,000, much looser mortgage rules and stuff like that. Now
40-year amortizations.
Now you're buying, now you have to put more down. So you might not be running. You might be thinking, I'm gonna buy. I have 20% down, but I can buy 4 or 5 properties, but the numbers don't work in terms of cash flow. So instead of putting 20% out, you might put 40% down on one property to get a cash flow. And if there is ways, I've heard some banks have 40-year amortizations, but you might have to ask for those ones.
Yeah, I think my principal residence they pushed it way out. Yeah. to try to keep my payments steady.
Yeah. So if it's tougher definitely right now to invest in the cities that we are investing in right now. Still possible. You just got to kind of change the strategy, change your expectations a little bit, because once interest rates kind of come down a little bit, hopefully, then the cash flow will be there a little bit more. And it's not like many investors are going to be living off cash flow. Like before, when we were investing at the very beginning, people were like, I'm going to have 10 cash flowing properties at $1,000 a month. I'll have $10,000 a month in cash flow. We're not even close right now.
No.
Not even. So
you all got rich off the equity.
Yeah.
You got drunk on the equity.
You're looking for longer term appreciation, mortgage pay down, and a lot of the investors that we are actually, again, they're offloading right now to take money off the table that they've held it for 5-6 years. Okay, let's put an extra $200,000 in our pocket right now.
And pay down some debt.
Yeah. They might travel. But again, it's a safety net. It's liquid assets now instead of something tied up. So,
yeah, because a friend of mine was pointing out to me how we're pretty much 2021 prices again. It's November 2023 right now. Our prices are back to 2021, but rates like the overnight lending rate, Bank of Canada was like 0.25, right? We're like 5 now. So we are several times higher in interest rates, but we're the same price.
Yeah.
So, and most of the smart money thinks we're going to be a cut sometime mid next year, early next year.
Crossing fingers.
Fingers. And also at the same time, just for the listeners' benefit, for those who are newer, banks typically offer their best discounts for the spring market, right? To compete for all the volume of business that's going to come for the spring market. And then it'll be an interesting spring market. My guess is we may be at the bottom now, or we may even past it, because fixed rate mortgages are already coming down.
Yeah.
Right. Because the mortgage rate expectations, the way they're going, pretty much no one thinks there's going to be another increase here in Canada or in the U.S. So fixed rates are already coming down both here and the U.S. So that will stimulate the real estate market, and then the spring will be another one. But also, I get the sense, and from speaking to clients, is that many people are waiting for the spring to sell. So we may see a lot of inventory. So then we'll see where we end up, if there's enough buyers out there to absorb the sellers.
Yeah, I think we're sitting about 3 to 4 months inventory across most of the cities that we're looking at.
Yeah.
So it's still a buyer.
But it's split though, right?
It's
how much is that new
market.
construction condominium versus like on the ground starter homes?
Yeah.
Right.
So we're going to see if rates stay kind of steady or come down. The buyers are going to feel more confident, come back into the market, and then with the immigration that we're seeing now in like, I don't know, they were making numbers. I don't know. It's just
It'll still
hundreds
be
of
high.
thousands of
It'll
people.
still be
There's not
high.
enough. There's not enough homes. They'll never build enough homes fast enough.
Even if they have the immigration number, it'll still be like the Harper level immigration number, which was a historic high.
Yeah.
Right. So it's still humongous.
Yeah.
And we made lots of money back then.
Yeah. So it'll be I think it'll be kind of stalled out for until the end of the year, just because typical Christmas holiday season for real estate is always typically slower.
And banks aren't passing on the savings right now.
The December announcement will kind of dictate where things are going, I think. So if we have 2 announcements in a row where rates are held, then I think we're in the right direction.
It'll be interesting too, like, because even just like in the spring this year, when the Bank of Canada, when Tiff Macklin said they were holding, like the market went nuts.
Yeah, and then it raised in July, was it?
Yeah, and then they raised the coolant. Like, crap, we should have said we weren't raising.
Just kidding.
It sucks to be all you guys.
Yeah.
But damn. But yeah, fascinating times. But yeah, like, if anyone, like, there's opportunity now, but it's just advisable that you have higher cash down payments.
Yeah, higher cash down payment, run the numbers properly, whether you're using HELOC or not.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're not, the days of looking for $1,000 cash flowing duplexes now, it's difficult.
Yeah, because the great investments, like the best opportunities I see right now are there's a whole lot of gurus that are like having to fire sale, power of sale. There still seems to be a lot of buyers for like apartment buildings though. So I'm not in that space. I'll have a friend on the show soon enough to ask like what the apartment building space is. But for example, this past weekend, I was telling you before we were recording, like someone was selling a duplex in Hamilton, turnkey, sold for $740, which is like probably $25,000 less than any of us thought it would sell for.
Yeah.
So there's very motivated sellers out there.
Yep.
But even $740, like you're still going to have a fair amount of cash in order to make that thing cash flow.
Yeah.
Right. And also the point I should add is it was a tenanted property, which hurts its sale value.
Yeah. Anything with a tenant right now definitely is moving slower. Because buyers don't want to deal with it, and investors do know about the landlord-tenant board delay. So if there is a delay getting into the property or a vacant property, they know that deal might be squashed just because of that tenant.
We're not even sure if that was an investor that was buying it too, because it could be a homeowner buying it.
Yeah, even if a homeowner again trying to move into it, if the tenant doesn't leave, they can't close the property.
Yeah.
Or if they do close it, they're dealing with that tenant and the LTB themselves.
What's your experience with selling a tenanted property versus a non-tenanted property? So it can be vacant or a regular homeowner lives there.
Much easier, obviously, because with the tenants, if they're cooperative, then it's easier, but you still want to give them the 24-hour notice. You still have to let them know the whole process of, okay, this is initially, okay, we're going to take pictures. I've had tenants say they don't want pictures because of their personal belongings. I've had tenants cover all of the walls with bed sheets because they didn't want pictures in it. They covered everything on the kitchen because they didn't want pictures of it. A little bit ridiculous, but like that's up to them. We can't force them to say we have to take pictures of your photos or your personal belongings. If they want to cover, that's fine. We just have to work around it, but it's not ideal. And then for showing purposes of other potential buyers that are coming in, the harder you make it for them to view the property. For example, if I see a property on the listing right now and the buyer wants to see it, say it's 5 o'clock right now and you want to see it tomorrow at 11, you can't see that tenanted property unless that tenant is a very cooperative one. So you have to give your proper 24-hour notice. So you might lose that buyer right away because they can't get in. So with a tenanted property, it's much more difficult. Obviously, you set the expectations with the tenant first to make it as easy as possible. So most of the ones that have listed right now, all the tenants are pretty good. We still have to give the 24-hour notice, but some are even okay with short notice where an agent was in the area and they messaged over and said, I want to show this property in the next couple hours. I text the tenant and they're like, hey, sorry, last minute, can this agent show it? They're like, yeah, that's fine. That's okay. So as long as you set the expectation with the tenant first, I think it's a good thing. And if you're coming in as an agent and you know the rules and discuss it with the tenant and tell them the whole kind of the process of it, they're kind of at ease. You're not the property manager, you're not the landlord, you're coming in as a third party, a knowledgeable third party that you want to make sure that they're comfortable in help in kind of, even though there is a sale, in what their rights are as well. So again, most are good. There's only a few here or there that will dispute it
Right.
on purpose,
Yeah.
or maybe not on like by accident, like the family that we had dealt with. There's just kind of a miscommunication.
Part of the challenge, though, is that a lot of sellers and agents aren't familiar with working with tenants. They
Correct,
aren't,
yeah.
especially if they're not landlords.
Yeah.
Because we've seen it. Like
Yep.
we've seen them in the LTV,
Yep.
who are deservingly there in the LTV because the tenants are complaining about them.
Yep.
Because they don't follow rules and whatnot.
Yep.
So kind of a difficult question, but like, say just an average property that's tenanted, how much longer would it take to sell, and how much do you think a discount would apply for a tenanted property versus a homeowner occupied or vacant?
Time-wise, I would probably say at least a few weeks right now.
Take a
Just
few more weeks to sell.
to sell, yeah. Dollar-wise, it's hard. I'd have to run some numbers on kind of the properties, but you're probably, especially if it's going to be a duplex, for example, single family, not as much, just because
It's one unit.
It's one unit.
yeah,
More
easy
than
to get
likely, it's
access.
going to be a homeowner buying it, so they're going to be moving in.
Yeah.
You might have a little bit of discount because of the wear and tear or something of the property itself.
That's regular discount,
Yeah,
though.
but for like a duplex, you're probably looking at, I don't know, 25, 30 grand probably at least compared to an empty one.
Right.
Just because the rents might be low, and it's going to be more of a math thing versus the tenants itself. It's like if they've been in there for a few years and the rents are low, not as many investors are going to be buying it then for sure.
Because I've spoken to many realtors around the city, around like us. Like we do a lot in Hamilton, KWC, Guelph, Brantford. So I've spoken to many of our counterparts in the city and around the city as well.
Yeah.
And it seems to be pretty consistent that like the best practice is to, let the tenant know you're selling,
Yeah.
give them time to leave, so
Yeah.
then you have a chance to clean up the property a bit.
Yep.
In order to maximize your sale price.
Yep. 100%. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Some don't want to go that route, some investors, because once the property is empty, then they're carrying costs. They don't have anybody covering their carrying costs. So it's kind of a catch-22 on something like that. What you want to do is like, do you want a higher sale price and a faster sale because it's empty, but you are going to be having monthly carrying costs when it is empty, or do you want to sell it with the tenant where you might get a lower sale price or it might take longer? So it's up to the investor and how the math works out for them, essentially.
What would you do if it was your property? You have a tenanted. Would you sell it as is, or would you try to wait for them? Wait until they're gone, or do your moving agreement?
Yeah. It'll depend on the tenant first. Ideally, you want them to leave first. I would want them to leave.
Yeah.
It's just much easier to show, much easier to coordinate and stuff like that.
Yeah. And like you said, it's kind of case by case. For example, my student rentals are generally much easier to own.
Yep.
And they're generally much more cooperative as well. Like they have less of like family belongings in the house. It's usually much more like business. The rooms are much more business. Like just like what they need to live away from home. So they're not nearly as protective or private about their stuff.
Yeah, they don't care as much.
Yeah, I don't care as much. But we were talking before we were recording, because we know many of our clients are planning to sell in the spring. Shouldn't they be letting the tenant know what their plans are now?
Yeah, you definitely I was just talking to a couple JV partners on our condo actually this morning that we're probably planning to offload next year. So we'll probably just give the heads up to the tenant now, just saying, hey, we're actually looking to sell the unit next year. These are the two scenarios. If it's an owner occupied, you're going to be given 60-day notice once we finalize the deal, and you're going to have to move out. You'll get 1 month's compensation because of that, but you will have to move out. The second option is that an investor buys it and they assume your lease, but because it's a condo, more than likely it's going to be a buyer that's going to be moving in, and then position it to them potentially saying, so if you don't want to go through the kind of the uncertainty of when we're actually going to sell it, if you want to move out at the end of this year or say end of January, we're more than happy. No penalties or anything like that. and get them to sign like a mutual release form,
Yeah.
and then do
N11, yeah.
an 11 form, and then do the move out agreement.
Thanks, N11.
Yeah, mutual, yeah, an 11 mutual release, yeah. So start now with talking to them, obviously, but you might not list again. It's okay to list now, but I would say in the next first 2 weeks of December, it gets a little bit trickier just because the market is not going
really quiet.
Yeah, it's really quiet.
Yeah.
And then you start listing early next year.
Because we've seen spring market, and you say early next year, we've seen spring market start as early as February.
Yep.
Especially if the weather was good.
Yep.
And there was like, yeah, if the economics look good, for example, say there's a rate cut in like February or March, I don't think it'll be that early, but it could be actually. Then yeah, we'll see crazy activity.
Yep, yeah, for sure. Well, the idea of the buyers are more confident, so they'll come back into the market.
Yeah, because they know that they're getting in probably at the bottom of the market.
Yeah. And within real estate, we saw the highs in 2022. Like, we know that duplex will eventually sell for $1 million, but you can buy for 750 now.
Yeah.
And again, it might come back down a little bit, but there is going to be a kind of a price floor for that property that everybody thinks it's a good deal. Because if you go around looking at those same bungalows right now, if I told you could buy one for $500,000, how many investors are going to put up their hand right away for that property? There's that price floor for it, for those types of houses, no matter what. So we know where the value could go, and will it get there? Yes, probably, but we just don't know the time frame of it yet.
Yeah, it could be 2-3 years.
Could be longer.
Which is not bad at all.
Yeah, which is not bad at all. Make 30%, well, more than 30%, I guess.
Yeah,
right?
more than 30%, 2-3 years of appreciation.
Yeah.
But again, someone's got to have the cash and the confidence to do so.
Yep.
Yeah, and that's what I meant. Like, there is opportunity locally. It's just not. It takes a lot of capital. You have to be able to inherit. You have to be comfortable inheriting tenants.
Yeah.
Right. Not cash flowing much.
And then you're going to try to minimize your risk with dealing with the right tenants, obviously. So proper screening and stuff like that. If you are assuming tenants, a little bit more difficult. But if you're buying a property and then you're renting it out, then spend a little bit more time to get the proper tenant versus somebody in there quickly as well.
Yeah. Because my experience has been that most people do not screen tenants as diligently as we do. So when you inherit, it's usually
Well, some of the stories that I read off of the Facebook groups, I was like, how did you get this tenant in there in the first place?
Yeah. My worst tenant ever was inherited. So
yeah.
I know the feeling.
Yeah.
Hey, so we talked about Journey. You've done a lot of things. Like, you're wearing a hodl hat.
Yeah.
You've done FX trading. What has that led you to? Like, what are your lessons from that? Like, you said now you're doing simple. Was FX trading simple?
I think you make whatever you do, you kind of make it how you want, essentially. So, like, I've tried Amazon arbitration and stuff like that, where we'll buy toys from Toys R Us and like Walmart and flip them on Amazon for 30% profit.
And
so, like, it works. Like, all of it works. It's just finding something that you like to do that fits with your lifestyle, and that can change over the years.
Yeah.
So FX was before, back in 2018, 2019, fairly aggressive with it in terms of how I trade. Now it's just simple. Right. Not as much trading anymore.
But the market changed too. Didn't the rules change?
Yeah,
the rules was the big one.
Rules changed. Yeah. The types of brokers that you were working with changed for leverage stuff. So you could do with regulated broker before. I think you still can, but it's much harder, like, with getting your money in and out and stuff like that. So things change that will kind of make it easier for you and what you want to do yourself. So for me, like, even trading wise, it's just simple for like crypto stuff. I was trading it before, and then the market went crazy because of the drops and stuff like that. So I was like, okay, gotta hold. Now I'm just hodling, just holding. Just buy, no trading on the crypto stuff at all. Same thing with FX, and kind of simple. Kind of keep things simple. Don't have to worry about it as much for me.
Right. So, like, I don't like to use the term regrets because I think there's a way to learn. But I think you've kind of explained that, like, the Sixplex lost money.
Yeah.
So you probably wouldn't want to do that again.
No.
And also, like, you something you said to me, I forget how long ago, within like 6 months, you said your next property you buy will be a single family home.
Yep.
Like it's, and for the listener, they're probably like shaking your head, like, why would you buy a single family home? Like you can't make any money doing that.
Yeah, it's not for the cash flow. Like I just want break even, essentially, maybe negative. My personal threshold is about $300 negative a month is where I would want to cap off at. But again, it's just keeping things simple. I don't want to deal with two tenants for the duplex.
So yeah, so you don't even want a duplex personally.
Yeah, so I just want single family, long term buy and hold, essentially. In the cities that I would want, like again, I prefer Kitchener-Waterloo just because born and raised there. So I do want to get back into that market for the next one. It just might take some little bit of time just for the numbers to work out.
So what are you buying? Like an apartment condo? Are you buying a detached 3-bedroom? What are you buying?
Ideally, would be the next one would probably be just a detached starter family, like what we've originally purchased back in 2008, 2009.
Just for a lot more money.
Yeah, just for a lot more money.
Okay, so hang on, let's work through this. So how much would that property be right now-ish?
You're probably looking at a decent one, $750.
$750. So you can buy a duplex for that, but you don't want you want a single family home. Okay.
That's going to be on the high, I guess the higher end. You probably find something in the 650s, but 750. We can work with that number.
Okay. And then what would it rent for?
Let's say $3,000 a month.
$3K per month. And how much do you think you have to put down to get to like negative $300 a month?
You're probably looking at, I would say 35% down minimum.
And that's cash. That ain't home equity line, for example.
Ideally, yeah. Like assume it's cash, savings, or whatever you want to pull it from. Yeah.
Right. And then when are you gonna burr this thing?
Ideally, I don't like. I don't want a bird. Like I just want turnkey. For me, I want turnkey.
You're gonna buy a renovated property.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. You don't even want to renovate it.
I don't even want to renovate it anymore. I don't have time to renovate it. Even though I could get a team to renovate it, I don't want time right now.
If you just got rid of a dog, you maybe have more time. No, I'm kidding. Just leave the gate open. No, I'm kidding. It's a terrible joke. Terrible. Bad Erwin. So that's what you want to do now. Yo, because you know Montu. We both know Montu.
Yeah.
Who does condos. He even said to me he'd be even down with leaving a condo vacant, just so not to deal with tenant stuff.
Yeah.
And just sell it.
Yeah.
Right. Like that's so wild how we have. I always find it fascinating because that's part of the point of the show, Truth About Real Estate Investing. We're not here to sell glitz and glamour and rainbows and blow smoke up your ass. We're here to tell you like what it really is. And you've been on this journey. You've done the hard stuff. You've done like the hardest. Oh, and also the point about the sixplex that I didn't get to bring up was a tough tenant profile.
Yeah.
And the building had minimal maintenance done through its life.
Yeah.
So it was a difficult property, but the area was wonderful.
Yeah, it was. We were probably 5 years ahead of our time on that one.
Yeah.
That again, if we had deeper pockets, it would have been a great investment. But at that time, just again,
because it's Gage Park. Gage Park was even
right across. You walk across the street from Main Street, it's Gage Park. Yeah.
Yeah, because Gage Park was even like Toronto Magazine or something.
Yeah.
A bit. It was like the best place for Torontonians to go live.
Yeah.
For affordability and whatnot. Right. So it was a good buy on many levels, but yeah, just difficult tenant profile.
Yeah.
And also the other thing I didn't bring up was ODSP on disability. Like it's not indexed to inflation, and that was always like a rule of thumb that I've used. Right, I've tried to I know that wasn't your plan to go in to get ODSP tenants.
Yeah.
But people need to consider these things when they're buying an apartment building or buying any property. If you have tenants who are indexed to inflation, their income is indexed to inflation, how are you ever going to raise rents?
Yeah.
Right? Now we really know what inflation feels like these days.
Yeah.
Back then when it was 2%, we didn't feel so much.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's just a good learning lesson for the listener.
Yeah. It's more complex the property. Like there is more money to be made on it in the future, but you just have to deal with a lot of stuff.
Yeah. It also depends on what you pay for. Because we tracked the property because it's sold at least twice since you've owned it.
Yeah, I think the last one was at 1.1. I think it was. It might have been higher.
Excuse me. So they paid like almost triple what you paid.
Yeah, it's been 10 years. Almost 10 years though. Kind of makes sense.
I wonder if many of those tenants are still there.
Maybe the main floor one.
So yeah, my point is it'd be tough to make money at that.
Yeah.
Because you didn't do the rent. You didn't do the roof or the boiler.
Nope. We just sold it before. We sold it before we could actually. We figured out because it was like at that time it was like the roof was like, I think it was like a quote for like 20,000-30,000 because it's a flat roof.
Yeah.
And you're doing the whole. I think you're doing the whole roof because there was like patches in there, but like we got that one corner like, nope.
Yeah. Because I can't even imagine what it costs today because inflation.
Oh, yeah.
I'm sure it's more than. It's got to be at least double that now.
Probably, yeah.
Crazy. So interesting. Tim, sorry, I've hogged the conversation, at least guiding it. Anything else you want to talk about?
Nothing specific. I don't know. I think we covered. Did we cover everything for now?
It cracks me up that you can buy Bitcoin through Canada Post.
Yeah, so you can. Well, you're paying a bill through Bull Bitcoin. Is you set up an account with Bull Bitcoin.
Yeah.
And basically, it's non-KYC, so you don't have to put any of your information in other than an email
KYC
address.
meaning know your client.
Know your client.
You don't have to disclose anything.
Yeah, so you can only buy a maximum of $999.99. But you bring in a QR code, we'll scan it. You pay cash or debit, and essentially it's a bill payment. And you'll get your Bull Bitcoin account funded, and then you can buy Bitcoin that way right to your right to your wallet.
Mm-hmm.
They don't custodian. I don't sorry. Custodial your Bitcoin.
Oh yeah,
They don't hold it. It's on an exchange, so you have it right away.
Yeah.
So I bought some like 2 days ago.
What's your strategy with Bitcoin? Is it like your long-term savings? Like
long-term savings. I found out that you can actually pay bills through Bull Bitcoin right now. So I'm actually thinking of putting more money into Bitcoin, and when my bill comes up, use it to pay for my bills.
Interesting.
Long term, like I'm not that smart, but very smart people that I know of seem to be jumping into that space where even bigger hedge fund companies or like BlackRock?
There's so many black ones.
I don't know.
There's Blackstone,
Yeah,
BlackRock.
well, those ones they're talking about ETFs. So if that type of money is talking about Bitcoin, you know something's happening there. So just jumping into those long-term savings. I don't know what the value would be later on. Hopefully I can retire in a couple years with it. And we'll go from there. And I don't have to do anything as much.
What's Canada Post's involvement? It's just because they're just.
It's just a bill payment. Yeah, so Canada Post uses a third-party bill payment company and you're not really buying Bitcoin, but you're paying a bill. That bill is invoiced from Bull Bitcoin where the money goes towards. So essentially, but you can just call it like, you're buying Bitcoin from Canada Post, essentially. It's kind of funny.
But does Canada Post, did they promote this? Like,
no, it's not promoted.
Okay.
Because it's like it's that third party payment is used actually across a lot of different people as well. So you can even go pay your taxes at Canada Post. So you'll go off your CRA, you'll print a QR code, bring that QR code in, scan it, and make a payment. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of the same concept there, but with another company, Bull Bitcoin.
Fabulous.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Hey, do you guys manage student rentals?
Some here and there, not a lot. No.
What? You went to Waterloo. You don't like Waterloo students?
Yeah, well, they're fine. They're okay to deal with. Just again, trying to keep things simple in terms of the management side as well. Just don't want to deal with that many tenants in one building because you can break it up into rooms. Like a duplex, you can count as like your 2 doors, 2 units. Yeah. So it's like 2 extra properties that you're managing versus one single one.
Yeah.
So just keeping it simple.
It's hard. Yeah. Student rentals is just a big story these days because you can turn over the students on some regularity, so you have that chance to raise your rents to market again.
I've never had issues with students either. For non-payment, I've never taken a student to like LTB at all. So as an investment, always good, I think.
So what cities will you manage for students then?
Hamilton and Waterloo, Kitchener-Waterloo area. Yeah. So I'm still on the west end. Yeah.
Right. So that means Mac, Mohawk College.
Mohawk, yeah, it's on the mountain.
Conestoga College.
Is there Conestoga in Hamilton?
No, in
Waterloo. Yeah.
Waterloo.
Yeah, they're all 3 are in the same area. Yeah.
All right.
But they're in terms of like those. There's less and less student rentals in Waterloo because they built so many condos there.
That's actually a good thing to share. Because we've had experience. We've had
Yep.
a client purchase one,
Not through us.
not through us, and we advised against
Yes.
it. How'd that work out?
They sold it, but I think they broke even. So for those ones, the purpose-built student rental condos, if you got in very early, right at the beginning, it kind of made sense because for the first 2 years, because the incentive was always 2 years free maintenance, 2 years free guaranteed rentals. So your 2 years were fine, but it's the exit strategy right now, is that a 1-bedroom or a 2-bedroom condo is selling for 500, or I think not even 500. I looked at one like 450, for example, plus the condo fees of $400, but they're renting out for 2,500. So as an investor, as a true investor that you don't have kids going there, you're not going to be buying that. Your only buyer profile will be parents that want their kids to be in university. So you've just limited your exit strategy to pretty much a couple potential types of buyers. Because as you and me to go invest, we're not going to be investing into a student rental condo that doesn't cash flow. It doesn't make sense for us whatsoever. So the only people that are buying those condos after clients are selling is that their kids are going to the university for the next 2-3 years. And even then, I was out this past weekend with one. They have two kids going to University of Waterloo. They're from Vancouver. And I told them, I was like, yes, this is the closest you'll be to the university. You're walking distance, everything, all amenities are close. It's great. But your exit strategy is going to be very, very difficult after.
Yeah.
Like you're either going to sell potentially at a loss, maybe, or you might even break even if you're lucky.
Right. Which
So-
is not the worst compared to paying rent.
Not the worst, not the worst, but if they have the funds, which they are qualified to do, I was like,
buy a house.
why don't you go get a detached or even a semi-detached or even a condo townhouse is even better than a condo student rental apartment.
Yeah.
That you can rent 4 or 5 rooms to,
Right.
and your exit strategy there is much wider in terms of your buyer pool.
Right. So just to pause you a second, because I think we need to elaborate that this is market specific, because Waterloo has like when I saw the plan, I was like shocked how many apartment buildings they're building.
Yeah, there's going to be a surplus. I think of after all of them get built out, there's going to be a surplus.
Wait, hang on, they're building more still?
Yeah, they're still building. Yeah.
They had the phase 1 was too many.
Yeah, there's a lot still coming.
Oh my god!
Yeah.
Who's buying all these things?
I don't know. Like all the houses that used to be on the side streets when I was going to university there, all of them are torn down.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Building the condo townhouses, and I think it's similar across the different cities. Like I've seen condos, these purpose-built student rentals be in London and
Right.
Queens, and
Right.
like not as many in Hamilton actually.
No, they're not happening in Hamilton.
But for those other cities, same strategy is that make sure you know what your exit strategy is. Like getting in the first 2 years, yeah, great. After that, it might be a gong show.
So why can't just regular people live in these condos?
You can, but why would you? Like if you're a young professional,
Hopefully it's cheap.
if you're a young professional, say you graduated and you spent 3-4 years in these places,
Yeah.
and now you're working at, let's say in your Waterloo, and you're working at, you had a nice job at Google, for example. Do you want, and you're getting paid a good amount, probably close to 6 figures, probably even coming out of university at Google, do you want to be living with 500 students from first year up to fourth year, for fifth year?
Is it rowdy? Is it dirty?
I would say I would say it's dirtier. The maintenance fees will typically go up faster, from what I know, because just think of your own student rental that you have 6 students in. Multiply that by 100 when you have 500 students in a same condo building, right? So it's just that idea that not as many like if you young couple that are married, you're not going to be moving into that one. You're probably going to go down to the downtown core where you can get a condo, a little bit more, but it's more classy, I guess.
Yeah, I guess the amenities will be more targeted to you versus being near the university, which you probably don't really care to.
Yeah,
be
you might
if
have
you're-
you might have a concierge security there. I don't even know if these student rental ones have like gyms or anything. I'm not even too sure. I don't even remember off the top of my head, but
Well, they're students; they can always go to the school gym.
yeah.
Now, what happened to like the real estate values around those condos, like the houses? Like, did like these Waterloo student rental condos? Did they wipe out the student rental market for the houses?
No, there's still a lot of people that want to the renters, like the students renting, they still want the houses because we find that they want to rent in groups, similar to like Hamilton, where there's a group of 5, group of 6 after first year. They want to hang out with their friends.
Well, the cost is cheaper.
The cost is going to be cheaper because that 2-bedroom condo is renting for so let's say $2,500. That's $1,250
each,
per room, essentially, right?
Yeah.
Where a house, you're probably paying $800 to $1,000.
Wow, rents. There's still that much pressure on rents.
Yeah, there's still pressure. There's still demand, but because when most of our investors are providing good homes, like they're nicer than your typical student rental, so we're getting top rents for them.
Right.
And they're willing to pay if it's clean, if it's still close to the universities and stuff like that.
And these are licensed, 4, 5, 6 bedroom?
Licensed, yeah. Waterloo has licensing, which is annoying.
But if you buy one today and do a conversion, can you get a 6-bedroom, or there's restrictions?
You'd have to do like a 3 and a 3 or a 4 and a 4, top unit and bottom unit.
So you can't get back. You'd have to buy an existing 6-bedroom.
You'd have to buy license 5+ or more, yeah. And then,
but they're transferable though, like the license.
Yeah, it's not the license isn't transferable, but you can apply based on the previous license criteria, essentially. So if it was a 5-unit, like a 5-room license, you can't get that 5 license anymore, I don't believe. But because it was done before, you can still apply for it. It's kind of like grandfathered in, but you're not. It's not a transfer of the actual license itself. Yeah.
How much is how much to get licensed, and what's the ongoing?
$300 to $600 a year.
Ouch.
Yeah. Plus, every few years you have to do an HVAC
that was dumb.
inspection, as well as an ESA inspection as well. Yeah.
Even if you don't do anything to the ESA or HVAC, you still have to get it inspected.
Yep.
It's just a waste of money.
Yep. Yeah, it's a money grab for and it's a complaint-based system where once you're licensed, like if the city doesn't go around checking the rentals, right?
Right.
So only if somebody complains about it to the city will they come out. So once you're licensed, it doesn't really matter at that time. I've seen a lot of licensed rentals that look like, how did this get licensed?
Right, but they still have to upkeep the HVAC and.
They do, but we've heard of stories where if you know an HVAC or a ESA master electrician, they just sign off on it.
Right. Fascinating. Right. Yeah, Tim, I know you got to go. Thanks so much for doing this.
No problem.
And where can people reach out if they want a property manager, or like I've been telling our clients if they wanted to sell in the spring, they need to talk to you like ASAP.
Yeah.
Where can people get a hold of you?
Email's the best. Tim at infinitywealth.ca. I think that's our website.
Yeah, that's it. And then what? You want to share your TikTok or Instagram for the Canada Post store?
Instagram, it would be Card and Party is a store. So Card, I think it's just there's hyphens in there somewhere, but search up Card and Party Oakville. Instagram should pop up. TikTok might pop up. We just post cards of the day that are funny, essentially. Some are inappropriate, but just posting for fun here and there.
Fantastic. Thanks so much, Tim. Thanks for doing this.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you for watching. If you want to learn how to invest in real estate from scratch, my team teaches beginners how to use the #1 investment strategy that I personally use in a virtual free training class every month. Go to investortraining.ca/YouTube to register for our next class. The link is also in the description as well. I publish at least 2 to 3 videos a week here, so subscribe if you want to keep learning from seasoned investors like myself and my guests. And if you're just starting out, feel free to ask questions and comment below, and I do the best to answer each of those comments and questions myself. Again, if you're ready to learn the nitty-gritty about real estate investing from a professional investor, register for our next virtual class. That's at investortraining.ca/YouTube. Thanks again for watching. See you in the next video.